Chapter 1. The Stranger at Sunrise. My village was small and quiet, nestled between lush rice fields, slow hills, and a lazy river that carried the stories of generations past. Most families lived simply, growing rice, raising ducks, and cooking over open fires. Life moved slowly here, until one day a stranger arrived. He came at sunrise, carrying a brown leather bag, a bamboo walking stick, and a small red paper lantern that swayed in the breeze. Children saw him first, pointing and whispering as he walked calmly toward the old wooden schoolhouse. His clothes were simple, a faded white shirt, dark trousers, and sandals worn thin by travel. His eyes, however, were sharp and kind, full of stories. His name, he said, was Mr. Bright. No one knew much about him. Some villagers guessed he came from the capital. Others thought he was a monk who had left the mountains. The children thought he might be a magician. Who else would carry a red lantern in daylight? But when he stood in front of the school, rang the brass bell, and opened the creaking door, something felt right. Inside, he dusted off the old blackboard and wrote with white chalk, "Light, learn, grow." He turned to the confused children sitting on broken benches and said gently, "Let's begin." And so, something new began in my village. Chapter 2. The Classroom of Wonder. From the very first week, Mr. Bright changed everything. He didn't just teach the alphabet. He brought in baskets of smooth stones painted with letters and asked the children to create English words by arranging them on the floor. There was laughter, mistakes, and joy. He told them that words were like seeds. When you plant them with care and water them with curiosity, they grow into knowledge. They sang songs to learn numbers, played games to remember verbs, and clapped rhythms to practice sentences. Instead of only reading from books, Mr. Bright asked the children to draw pictures of their homes, their favorite animals, and the tree where they played. Then he helped them describe the drawings in English. The walls slowly filled with posters, poems, and dreams. He brought in paper puppets, built with sticks and cloth, and helped the children write their own short plays. They acted out scenes about animals getting lost in the forest, or grandmothers making rice cakes. They laughed at each other's accents and mistakes, but always in kindness. "Learning is not copying," he often said. "Learning is discovering." Fridays became story days. Every child had to share something, a riddle, a memory, or even a joke in English. At first they were scared. Some stammered, others forgot their words. But Mr. Bright listened with patience. His eyes always sparkled when a child tried something new. He made a habit of ending each week with the same sentence. "The bravest voice is the one that speaks even when it's afraid." Chapter 3. Lynn's First Voice. Lynn was the quietest student in the class. She sat near the back, often hiding behind her long black hair. She never spoke unless called on, and even then her voice barely rose above a whisper. But Mr. Bright noticed her. He saw the way she carefully underlined every word in her notebook, how she sketched tiny drawings beside vocabulary words. He noticed how her fingers trembled when she held the pencil, but how steady they became when she drew. One afternoon, as the class was working on poems about nature, Mr. Bright walked over to Lynn's desk. Her paper had a drawing of a butterfly beside a short English sentence. "The wings are light like dreams." "Would you like to read a story with me on Friday?" he asked. Lynn shook her head, but he just smiled and said, "I believe your voice is ready, even if you don't believe it yet." That Friday, to everyone's surprise, Lynn stood beside Mr. Bright. She read a few lines from an old Vietnamese folktale, her hands shaking. But as the class listened quietly, her voice grew steadier, stronger. Her classmates watched in awe. When she finished, the class clapped. Mr. Bright handed her a small red lantern for courage. From that day on, Lynn never missed a Story Friday again, and she always brought a new story to share. She began to help her classmates, too. She helped young Bao pronounce the word butterfly, and stayed after class to help Quang write about his favorite bird. Each time she shared her voice, it became stronger. Chapter 4. Teaching in the Rain. The rainy season arrived like a giant curtain drawn across the sky. Thunder shook the hills, and water ran through the village like a second river. One morning, the sky turned nearly black, and by noon it was pouring. The school roof leaked badly. Rain dropped on desks, books, and the chalkboard. The wind howled, rattling the shutters. Most teachers would have canceled class, but Mr. Bright stayed. He grabbed buckets, pots, and pans to catch the water. He moved the benches and tables to the driest corners and made the children sit close together. He even covered the leaking part of the roof with his own coat. "We can still learn," he said, holding up a soggy flashcard. "Let's learn the word storm." On the blackboard, under the dripping roof, he wrote storm, wind, protect, brave, flood, clean, roof. The students repeated each word, their voices rising above the rain. That night, Mr. Bright stayed at the school. He slept on the floor wrapped in an old map of the world. He fixed the roof the next morning, using bamboo, palm leaves, and wire borrowed from a local fisherman. When the children returned, the school felt like home again. Chapter 5. Night School Lights. My village had no electricity at night, but Mr. Bright had an idea. He asked the village chief permission to hold night classes using candles and oil lamps. The chief agreed. Every Tuesday and Thursday, families brought chairs and mats to the schoolyard. Children came with their parents. Grandparents came too. Mr. Bright read simple English stories and explained them in Vietnamese. He taught words like family, hope, strong, light, and future. They learned the names of fruits and tools, sang songs in both languages, and practiced speaking in pairs. After each story, he would ask, "What does this mean to you?" And old Mr. Duan, who had never gone to school, would slowly say in broken English, "It mean, I can try." Everyone would cheer. One night, a little girl asked, "Why do you always carry the red lantern?" Mr. Bright smiled, "Because even a small light helps people find their way in the dark." Chapter 6. Hidden Talents. Mr. Bright believed that every child had a hidden gift. He gave Hua old science books. She loved the stars and asked deep questions about the moon. He helped her make a simple telescope from glass and bamboo. He let Nam organize the library. Nam created a system using color-coded strings. Each color meant a different topic: animals, plants, places, dreams. He encouraged Lean to write poems and helped her send one to a children's magazine in Hanoi. When the magazine published it, Lean became a local hero. He started the Star of the Week award. not for the highest scores, but for effort, kindness, or creativity. One week, a shy boy named Tien won for drawing a perfect map of the village using only memory. With each passing day, children who once sat in silence began to laugh, speak, and lead. Chapter 7. The Road to the Fair. One day, a letter arrived from the district office. There would be a science fair for rural schools. Mr. Bright read it aloud. The children gasped. "We must go," said Hua. "But what can we build?" asked Nam. They decided to solve a village problem. Rice husks were usually burned and wasted. Could they be turned into fuel? Mr. Bright guided them through experiments. They tested how rice husks burned. They built a stove from clay and metal scraps. They recorded temperatures, cooking times, and measured efficiency. They practiced explaining everything in English. "We use rice husk. It is cheap. It is good for cooking." The road to the fair was not easy. The bridge out of my village had collapsed during the last storm. The group had to take a small wooden boat, then walk 6 kilometers carrying the stove, charts, and supplies. Their shoes got muddy. Their posters got wet. At one point, a cart carrying the stove tipped over in the mud, but they worked together, cleaning it and fixing it with rope and cloth. At the fair, they stood beside polished teams from big schools, students in uniforms with computers and printed charts. At first, they felt small, but when Hua lit the rice stove and explained their project with confidence, people gathered. They didn't win first place, but they received the Creativity Award. One judge said, "You used knowledge to solve a real problem. That is true science." The children beamed with pride. On the journey home, their laughter echoed across the hills. Chapter 9. Voices on the Stage. The fair changed the children. They spoke more English, asked deeper questions, and supported one another. Mr. Bright saw their growth and smiled. He suggested a celebration, a performance night where each child would present something in English. The whole village was invited. They rehearsed songs, jokes, plays, and even puppet shows. Lean wrote a poem about courage. Nam read a letter to his future self. Hua explained how the rice stove worked. The night arrived. The schoolyard was decorated with lanterns. Families sat on mats, eyes wide with pride. When the last child bowed, the entire village stood and applauded. That night, Mr. Bright whispered, "This is why I came." The school year ended. On the final morning, Mr. Bright brought sweet rice wrapped in banana leaves. He hugged each student and gave them each a small notebook. He said, "This is for your next story. Write it with your heart." He packed his bag, tied the red lantern to his stick, and smiled. "I will come back," he promised. But deep down, the children knew. He had to go where he was needed next. That evening, they lined the path to the river with lanterns. Each child held one. As Mr. Bright walked past, he touched their heads and hearts. At the riverbank, he turned back and called, "Light, learn, grow." Then he disappeared into the mist. Thanks for watching. Take action today, not tomorrow. Press subscribe and let's keep learning together. You're doing great. See you in the next one. Stay strong.